These bottles are called the Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Alsace bottles. Here we're going to look at three things. Number one, we're going to look at each bottle individually. Two, why they're designed the way they are. And number three, some of the wines that traditionally fill them. As we get into the different types and shapes of bottles, it's important to note the different shapes will stack in wine racks a little bit differently. This means you'll need to know the different types of wine racks to use or to buy, so that way your wine bottles don't fall out or slide out of the wine racks. You'll get a better idea of what I mean by this as you see and think about the different bottle shapes. Actually, you might want to make note of that video. Types of wine racks. Generally, the names of many wine bottles come from various French wine regions because France is where many wine and wine bottles found their origin. While there are hundreds, even thousands of different bottle shapes, most winemakers choose to go with one of the big three. That's where we'll be spending the next few minutes. The big three are Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Alsace, or also known as the Moselle bottle. Wine bottles, here we go. The first bottle is the Burgundy bottle. We'll start with the Burgundy bottle because that's the first place in France where a bottle became standardized about 300 years ago. This bottle features gently sloping shoulders and a slightly wider body than the rest of the wine bottles. These are called low shoulders. Originally green, now this comes in a variety of colors. You'll find both red and white wines in this particular bottle. The low shoulders exist simply because 300 years ago, the design was easier for glassmakers to create. For 300 years, the red grape in Burgundy was, and still is, the Pinot Noir. The white grape is Chardonnay. By the way, did you hear that little trick of the trade to take the mystery out of French wines? 90 to 95% of the time you see a red wine from Burgundy, it's a Pinot Noir. And a white wine from Burgundy is a Chardonnay. As these two popular grapes spread across the world, so did the Burgundy bottle. Nowadays, most red wines with a flavor profile similar to Pinot Noir, which is light, bright, and complex, uses this style of bottle. Examples of other reds are Pinot Noir, Gamay, Nebbiolo, Syrah, Grenache, and one of my personal favorites, Blanc-Franc. Examples of white are Chardonnay, Pouilly-Fuissé, Chablis, Sancerre, and Viognier. The second is the Bordeaux bottle. This bottle is straight and tall in structure. What sets the Bordeaux bottle apart from the Burgundy bottle is the bottle's distinctive shoulders. They have high shoulders. The shoulders were created for a reason. They were created in order to catch sediment as you slowly poured your wine into your glass. See, sediment is caught right here. The Bordeaux bottle is the most used bottle among winemakers in the world today. The two most popular red wines in the world are Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. They're bottled in the Bordeaux bottle. Other red grapes are Malbec, Meritage, Zinfandel, Italian Reds, and Super Tuscans. As far as white wines, you have Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Semillon, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris, Bordeaux blends, and hundreds of others. The third of the big three is the Alsatian bottle. It's also known as the Moselle bottle. This bottle came into existence shortly after the Bordeaux bottle. It's taller and thinner than the other bottles with gently sloping shoulders and a long neck. It's more delicate than the Burgundy or Bordeaux bottle counterparts. It was originally created to be thin for transporting and storing Riesling wines as the wines were being taken down the Rhine River in France. The bottles needed to be slender in order to fit as many bottles as possible in the hull of the small river ships. Other wines using this bottle are the Gewürztraminer and very frequently sweet wines. and rosés. Those were the big three. Check out the video wine bottles, Champagne, Rhone, Fortified, and Provence bottles. Oh, also, there's that other video I mentioned earlier, types of wine racks. It may prove to be helpful to you also. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the big three wine bottles, the Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Alsace bottles, and the wines that go in them. Use it to your advantage and let me know if you have any questions. The first thing we're going to look at is the purpose of layering. It's actually pretty simple and straightforward. All layering your wine means is that you have different ways or places to store your wine based on their cost or quality. Actually, most of you may already be doing this and you're coming by it naturally. Actually, let me back up a second. In several of my other videos, I've talked about how most wine is really ready to drink the day you buy it. And it'll be good up to 3 or 4 years for white wines and 5 or 6 years for red wines. Some of the better wines you collect, of course, will last much longer than that. We recognize for most of us, our wine is for personal consumption, and for some of us, it's for investment. No matter whether it's for personal consumption or investment reasons, the better wine needs to be handled a little bit differently. Layering keeps your wines organized, allows you to have an adequate supply around, and helps you manage your costs. It makes it easy to see what you need so that when you're ready to buy more wine, you can buy the right quantities that will maximize your discounts. Now that you get the purpose of layering, let's walk through the details of layering. In other words, what are the actual layers you need to have? A lot of this is based on the configuration of your home. As I've said before, and I'll continue to say, one size does not fit all. So you may need to make some minor adaptations to my suggestions, depending on the particular setup you have. Okay, so the first layer is made up of convenient reds and whites. You want to keep about a half dozen to a dozen bottles of wine in your kitchen for everyday drinking. The reds will go in the kitchen or a convenient wine rack, and several whites will go in the fridge. You'll restock these regularly from the basement or from your other storage options. Layer 2 is made up of white wines. Here you can use a small wine refrigerator or a small or medium-sized regular refrigerator to hold your whites and your sparkling wines. It's always a good idea to have 2 to 3 cases chilled, especially in the long dog days of summer. If you're using a refrigerator, you might want to include a couple of cases of traditional or craft beer. Can you believe I said that? Beer. Geez, what's this world coming to? Well, hey, so far, has this information been helpful? If it has, please tell me. Or just write Asti in the comments below. Layer 3 is made up of both reds and whites in and below your sweet spot. Layer 4 is made up of wines above your sweet spot. These are wines that you handle with a little extra TLC. Layer 3 and 4 make up the lion's share of your wine collection. Here you'll have some wooden or wire racks or have a full-blown wine cellar. While these wines are in the same space, you want to differentiate the 2 layers. That way it makes it easier for you or someone else who's unfamiliar with what you have to grab something without having to check your inventory logs, whether they're on the computer or a hard copy someplace in your wine space. You want to keep the temperature at a constant 54 to 58 degrees. You'll rarely fill the space to capacity, and most of the wines will be consumed within 1 to 3 years. It also acts as a holding area for new purchases of all categories of wine. Due to the space constraints, some of you may have to put layers 2 in the same space as 3 and 4. Again, make sure you have a clear organization that indicates the 3 different layers. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about layering your wine collection. Myth number 1, your wine glass needs to be aesthetically and functionally perfect for the wine to taste just right. Folks, you really need to have a look at my 2 videos about the shape and types of both white wine and red wine glasses. In the first part of this video, you'll get just a taste of what I really go deep into in those 2 other videos. For our purpose today, it's not all that important to have a different shaped wine glass for your white wines. Having a single glass to use for both reds and whites makes life a whole lot simpler. I call this glass, this single glass, a universal glass. Mine's a little oversized. You can use a standard red wine glass if you want. The universal glass is what I prefer. Even with the sparkling wines, it allows you, the universal glass allows you to put your nose into the glass so that you can smell the beautiful characteristics and aromas of the sparkling wine. And this actually holds true for both ports and sherries. For these 3, don't just fill the glass quite as full. Now, I love the universal glass. As we swirl the wine around, you'll see that this glass is a perfect shape for the maximizing of your pleasure. It really allows the wine to be released and its aromas to be released. Ideally, you would like to have the opening to this as small as possible, but big enough to get this big old Italian nose inside to smell. So there you go. Myth number 1. You must own a whole variety and shapes and sizes of perfect glasses. Wrong, that's busted. Now for myth number 2, it goes something like this. When at a restaurant, the server has you taste some of the wine to see if you like it. This is a big myth. You have already chosen the wine. The assumption is you chose it because you like it. The little tasting ritual that the server goes through is not about whether you like the wine, it's about whether the wine is clean. You're not giving your opinion on the wine's flavor, you're examining the health of the wine. For more on how to excel in this awkward ritual, check out my video on what not to do in a restaurant. So when the server brings you the wine, are you checking to see if you like it? No. Busted. How are you doing there? Is this information helpful? Making sense? If it is, write busted in the comments below. Myth number 3, smell the cork. This one is a great one. I love this one. We've all been to restaurants where the server brings you the wine that you've ordered. Then they present the bottle to you, open the bottle, then put the cork on the table. Let me ask you, what do you think a cork in a wine bottle smells like? It's going to smell like a cork. The thing we're supposed to be doing is to see whether or not the wine is good and to make sure it doesn't smell corked. We'll learn about what that means in another video. So many people smell the cork to make sure that the wine doesn't smell like cork. Does this make sense? No. The reality is the cork will tell you very little about your wine and how it's going to taste. What you want to do is look at the wine stained on the cork to see if the wine is healthy. To learn how to do this, you'll want to watch that video that I was talking about earlier, what not to do at a restaurant. Now, when it comes to the 3 myths, in short, you don't need the perfect glass, your server isn't asking you if you like the wine, and you don't need to smell the cork. Well, there you have it. We just busted 3 wine myths. Remember, if you want to be certified as an Asti Wine Consultant official wine mythbuster, check out the details in the description below. I have friends that say, I can definitely tell the difference between a red wine and a white wine. I know that they look different and they taste different. Anything beyond that doesn't make any sense to me. Besides, I can't tell a good wine from a bad wine. They all taste the same to me. How do you know the difference good from bad. That's what we're going to look at and learn about. We're going to see why one wine is better than another. We're going to look at the 5 qualities that make up a wine, those qualities that take a good wine to a great wine. The first thing we're going to look at is varietal character. This is when a young wine that's been made from a single grape varietal presents its inherent grape aromas and flavors in a straightforward, clear, and focused way. Let me give you an example on how this works with something that we are a little bit more familiar with. Most of us can tell the difference in both taste and smell between a couple of red apples, a Fuji and a Gala apple. Same thing with red grapes. There's a difference between Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir. Or actually a couple of green apples, a Granny Smith and a Golden Delicious. And 2 green grapes, a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc grape. Each apple and each grape has its own smell and taste. That's varietal character. The second thing we're going to look at is integration. This is when the components of a wine, like the acid, tannins, and alcohol, are so interwoven that no one characteristic or component stands out. All the components have come together in a harmonious fusion. Actually, you might want to check out one of my other videos, How to Taste Wines, the Components. There we deal with acid, tannins, alcohol, and the other components. Getting back to integration, this is the bedrock upon which all judgment rests. An average or good wine presents itself like a star in your mouth. You can taste each point of the star, the acidity, the tannins, the distinctive oak. By comparison, a wonderful or great wine has all the components integrated together. The wine presents itself like a sphere in your mouth, so that you hear people say that the wine is round. It's so harmonious, you cannot easily grab onto any single component or point of the star. Integration is when the components are so interwoven that one characteristic or component does not stand out. The third thing is expressiveness. Some would call this intensity. This is the quality a wine presents when its aromas and flavors are well defined and clearly projected. This has to do with both the nose or the smell and the palate or the flavor or taste of the wine. Is it easy or difficult to smell and taste what's in the glass? Some wines seem to jump out of the glass at you. They're clear and focused. These are expressive wines, while other wines seem muddled or diffused. We might call these wines shy. Think of it this way. A picture on an out-of-focused black and white TV with an old antenna would be shy, compared to the same image on a 5G color TV. That image would be clear, focused, expressive. How are you doing there? Is this information making sense? If it is, write Asti in the comments below. The fourth thing is complexity. This is a little difficult to explain. This is not a thing, but more like a phenomenon. With a complex wine, you don't think in terms of the single characteristics like its fruit flavors or acidity, like we talked about earlier, but there's something about that wine that's compelling. After you've tasted it, there's something that pulls you back or that draws you back to the wine and compels you to have another smell or take another sip, because each time you do, you find something different, something new. Have you ever been to a movie, read a book, or experienced a piece of art where after seeing the movie, sometime later a scene pops into your head for no apparent reason, and a day or two later a different scene pops up? You think, what does that mean? Or you think about a scene and realize it could have had a different meaning than I had originally interpreted it. There's something about that movie or book that keeps drawing you back. Frequently, a complex wine is said to have layers. There's a little something different on each sip that keeps drawing you back for more. All that is what's involved in the wine's complexity. The fifth quality is connectedness or typicity. This is perhaps the most elusive of the qualities and the most difficult quality for many people to wrap their heads around. It's the bond between the grape and the plot of land it was grown on or born in. There are two pieces to this. Number one is the degree a wine demonstrates the characteristics of the grape, the varietal character, the Granny Smith apple of the grape. Plus, number two, the degree it reflects the place or region of the world the grape comes from. A grape varietal from a different region of the country or part of the world will taste different than the same grape varietal from a different part of the world. The taste difference is because they grew in a different place with different climate, different soil, different elevation, and other factors. Let's apply that to a wine. You might say maybe a Pinot Noir from Burgundy, France, and a Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley, Oregon. If you take your time and give it a little thought, you'll taste the difference. They'll taste like, number one, the varietal Pinot Noir, but you'll also be able to taste a slight difference because of number two, the place they're from. As you intentionally drink more wine, you begin to taste what the Pinot Noir from Burgundy is supposed to taste like. So when you taste a Pinot from Burgundy, you ask yourself, is this a good representation, a moderate representation, or a poor representation of a Pinot grape from Burgundy? Putting these two together is connectedness. Well, there you have it. The 5 pieces of the puzzle determining the difference between a good wine and a great wine. You've got everything you need to know about how to taste wine and what makes wine a great wine. Hey Posse, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. I trust it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And please consider hitting subscribe. Also, click here to check out our new online shop. We have a great lineup of wine-related items that will help you get the most out of your wine experience. Oh, and be sure to check out these other videos. Until next time, cheers.